Good day, podcast community. Pete Kane here, Podcast Pete, and certified lifestyle coach. We have a special guest. His uncle said, you got to have Tyler on your show. He loves podcasting. He's a connector. He's just like me. He loves people. So, Tyler, for the ones that don't know you, tell us who you are, what you do, and who you serve, and then we'll get into our podcast.
Thanks, Pete. It's good to be on. Glad that we finally were able to connect, I guess, after about a year.
It
I
was
had
a
to
little
take a
bit.
little bit. I took a little time away from my own podcast, and
Yes.
I went at it really hard. And honestly, got a little tired, and said, I gotta take a break. So I did, and yeah, man. So who I am an insurance professional by trade. But by mornings, afternoons, and nights, I'm a dad, I'm a husband. I've got two kids, a 7-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son, and we're busy. As far as who I serve, I like to say I do serve my customers. There's no doubt. That's what I do for a living. And I used to really struggle with what I do for a living as my identity. And it took me down a very dark, dark path. And
Mhm.
now who I serve are people who have been through that, who have been through that struggle with a performance-based life and
Mhm.
kind of coming out to the conclusion sometimes, maybe my career, maybe chasing, awards or accolades or whatever it may be, maybe that's not what brings people happiness. And so that's kind of what I've shifted my focus to, Pete. And it's been
Love it.
great.
I love it. Yeah, when I got my certification in coaching because I was transformed as that person and several others took me through a journey. I was the type A, go at it, work heavy. I
Yeah.
could outwork anybody on this planet. But it did get me into probably some health issues with the stroke. So
Mm.
I reevaluated after that. What do you think for yourself? So you're out there, you're building, you're running 90 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour. When was the moment that you kind of said, you know what, this isn't what it's all about? What
Mm.
did it take to kind of shock you into a little different of a focus?
Yeah, I'll give you a high level. I've been
Okay.
very open about my story. I feel like my story is what connects me to a lot of people. I started drinking when I was in 8th grade, and I drank as often as I could from uh, really 8th grade to 30, 34.
Hmm.
Um, and uh, it became an issue. Now, I've been married for 12 years. Tomorrow, May 1st, I will have 5 years of sobriety. Um, and really, what it took was one day, my wife and I were in marriage counseling, and we had been in marriage counseling off and on, off and on. And the thing that kept coming up was alcohol, and I was like, alcohol is not the problem. If I quit drinking, it's still going to be a problem. You're still going to look at me as a problem. And I got fed up with I got fed up with her and our therapist talking about it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to get sober. And so I went to a tiny house in Ellijay, Georgia. I took a case of beer and a fifth of whiskey, and I spent a weekend in this tiny house, what I called burning the bottle down. And I came back on a Sunday morning, May 1st, and I told my wife, I said, I'm done with this. I'm not going to do it anymore. I don't like
Hmm.
who I am, and I want to take care of you and my daughter. And so that started my sobriety journey.
Mm.
Um, Fast forward about 3 years after that is really when I started realizing, okay, I quit drinking, but I'm not sober. I'm miserable. I'm still chasing the carrot. I'm still doing the things that
Mhm.
were making me miserable. I just wasn't drinking. And so I hit a wall. I hit a wall. I had to get rid of some employees that were causing problems in the office, and production kind of slowed down. And I was faced with oh my goodness, I went from being a top performer to a bottom 50% performer, and I couldn't handle it. It
Mhm.
consumed me, and it really made me depressed. But I have a good support system. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to get past this. I'm going to get through it. And I did. And I went through a treatment program, just for mental health, not for alcohol, but
Mhm.
to kind of get my mind reframed. And that was it, man. And that was the turning point of my whole life, really. And the last 5 years has just been, every year gets better and better and better.
Mm. I didn't know any of that. So, it's when I'm listening to you share that story, um, I did something a little similar, but when I had a stroke and I'm laying in bed for 49 days, I started to think, one, I gotta get healthy again. And I thought alcohol, when I came to my alcohol, and I wasn't a big drinker, but I was
Mhm.
a social drinker, and I would certainly overindulge at times. But everything in my life that was a mess or that I screwed up on had alcohol related to
Yep.
it. So I said, you know what? I got to repair my brain. And I'm all the mistakes I can think about making all had alcohol in it. So why not just cut alcohol out?
Yep.
And I did. And I haven't had, I mean, it's been four years. I tell you, just like you said, I'm clearer. It's just amazing what
Mhm.
alcohol does to the brain.
Yep.
I feel my brother even said, "Man, Pete, you're sharper after your stroke than you were before." And it's really alcohol. I took that
Yep.
out of the equation. So what do you like when you look at your life now? What are you most excited about as you look into the future?
I think it's the progression. I love to see results. I'm results driven, and
Mhm.
I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
Yeah, I don't either.
But what I'm excited about that is, again, as I get every year more and more clear. I'm a huge advocate for mental health. I've been down a
Mhm.
very dark path.
Yep.
So what I get excited about now is new opportunities, new challenges, new experiences.
Yeah.
And I get excited because, I used to look at opportunity and experiences as an opportunity to be irresponsible, fall back into my inner child, fall back into the whole, I'll deal with my consequences later if there are consequences. So for me, like, what I'm most excited about is just the next step. Every day, presents a new challenge, and sometimes they stink, but it's about looking forward and being excited about experiences.
Wow, that is so good. What do you I've heard this numerous times and I haven't really I mean, I haven't figured out if it's true or not, but it comes up. The first 7 years of a person's life is that time that everything gets like your mindset, your personality, things in your life really get molded.
Mhm.
Did you find that because you said at 8 you started, did you find that in those first 7 years, there were things that happened that kind of put you on that path of alcohol?
Yeah, and a lot of that got unraveled. So I can take you back to eighth grade, exactly where I was
Mhm.
drinking. It was me and my best friend, and we're still best friends today. Uh, as I've gotten more clear, as I've done more therapy, more inner work, I came from a divorced family. I had my biological father lived kind of out of state, different places. And my mom was married to my stepdad who raised me. I actually took my stepdad's last name as an adult. I think I was 25 when I took his name.
Mhm.
Um, but I think what happened is having to go every weekend. I was at my grandmother's house, whom I love and adore. But what I found myself having to be is a chameleon. I had to be something different at my nuclear family's home versus her home. And as I've really paid attention, I can see the struggle that created, even though at the time I was like, "Oh, this is normal. It's really not that big of a deal. I'm not the only kid that has to do this." And honestly, if I go back and think about it, at that time, I was the only kid that had to do that. So I can see all these little things and there's so many more details, but I can see all
Mhm.
these little things from not birth, but probably kindergarten for sure, up to eighth grade that created that desire, one, to rebel, and two, to just numb out.
Mhm.
And I needed attention, and I needed attention whether it was positive or negative. I was the life of the party. People loved to be around me. And it's because I was going to perform. I was going to step up to whatever situation I was in and
Mhm.
give it 100%, you know?
That is so, and when you look at your life and you reflect, you kind of see those things that you happen in your life, and you're moving so fast that unless you slow down enough to really look at how things unwind, you're on that treadmill and it
Mhm.
just gets faster and faster. How do you I love the way you say you challenge. I challenge myself. I've tried it every single day. I always love challenges, but it's different than what I used to. I used to have the list long and I would work and work and work, but now I have so much white space and I journal because I don't play golf like I used to. How do you reflect? Is there a process that you go through on a regular basis that allows you to, kind of reflect and challenge and get Tyler ready for the day?
Yeah, it's funny that you asked that. I go to the gym. I'm a huge advocate of moving your body. Some of the worst months and years of my life was when I was the laziest. One thing that has helped, it's so funny because my wife and I talked about this yesterday because we kind of got away from it. I
Mhm,
used to get up in the mornings and get sunlight, or at least just be outside for the first 30, 45 minutes of my day.
mhm,
And I would call it a prayer walk. I would just go outside, and I always listen to my Christian podcast, Christian music, and then I had a guy that challenged me, "Hey, why don't you leave your AirPods at home and just go be outside?"
yeah.
And the first couple of walks doing that, I was like, "Man, this stinks. I don't need to be alone with me and my thoughts." And as I did it more and more, I came to love that. It was serenity,
Yes.
and, you can connect. And I walk at our golf course before it opens in the morning. There's a creek that runs through it, and you can just hear it. You can hear the birds coming out. You
Yes.
can hear the wind and the leaves. And it's like, okay, I'm connected. So I think my big thing that I try to do is wake up and be connected, whether it's my Bible, just
Mhm,
quiet time in general, or getting my body moving.
mhm. Ooh, that is so good. Yeah, it was, I never journaled until I had a stroke, and now I have 18 full journals, and that's my
Mm,
kinda go-to, and I have that quiet time, just like you're saying, on the porch, listening to the birds. I
mhm,
don't walk like most walking is more of a chore than it is
mm,
exercise. I do the bike when I go to the gym, but I'll listen to the birds and just be quiet out there and hearing sounds I've never heard before, and
yep,
it's so therapeutic to and a person shared with me a Merlin app, which you put it on your phone and it'll identify the birds,
mm,
and she was saying, like, you'll see how birds talk to each other because 'cause it'll go, like, back and forth,
that's
but
cool.
we're so busy we miss these things.
Yep,
I call it the busy bus. Everybody is so busy, they're running and they miss so much of that journey and that life that's out there. It's so beautiful.
mm,
You can just listen to nature. Like you said, the sun. I love when the sun kind of hits your face and you just
yep,
go out there and take it in. What else are you doing? Like, how do you wind down your day?
Ooh, I feel like I'm always wound tight. Um, that's why I loved alcohol because I could unwind. I have a 30-minute commute home to and
Mhm,
from work every day, and it's different. There's days where, I will drive home without a single radio on, not no music, no radio, no nothing.
mhm,
And again, I use that opportunity to pray. Then there's times where I will listen to specific songs that I enjoy, music. Um, and honestly, that at the end of a work day, that's how I unwind, is I take that
mhm,
30-minute commute, and when I pull into that driveway, I take a really, really deep breath because I
mm.
don't know what I'm walking into, you know?
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
probably had a few text
yeah,
messages on the way home from my wife and saying, "Hey, the kids didn't nap. It's crazy over here," and so I'm gonna walk through the door and, daddy's on duty. And I
mhm,
wouldn't change that for anything in the world, but for me, it's music, man. I love music,
mm,
and it just allows my brain to focus on a song instead of all the millions of things that go through my brain.
mm. We've seen AI coming in, and it's coming in fast. And I was just talking to a teacher at Kennesaw State at my Rotary, and we were talking about just thinking and critical thinking and what AI's how they're implementing AI into higher education. And he said it he's seeing that too many people are relying solely on AI, that they're not processing, they're not thinking, they're
Mhm.
not using their God-given brain.
Yep.
Do you feel like, how are you using AI, and
Yep.
what do you see this new technology coming into your life, your family, and
Yep.
your work?
Man, that's a great one, a super great one, and I would definitely encourage people to pay attention to how they're using AI. I think it's amazing. I truly do. I started my podcast from the ground up, zero experience with podcasting, anything uh, telecommunications related, and myself and ChatGPT built a podcast from the ground up. So it was incredible for that. When I first started podcasting and I would reach out to the people that I wanted on my show, I would screenshot whether it was their Instagram, Facebook, whatever, and ChatGPT would go in and create me a, hey, this is, send this to them in a DM. I wasn't getting a lot of responses. And I was like, this is kind of weird. This is top notch. This is
Mhm,
no errors in grammar. It's very direct. And I started realizing, okay, well, let me just try to I'll send it the direct mail. Man, I will tell you, as soon as I started firing off messages from me, not
mhm,
AI, I was getting so much response. And I was like, oh my goodness, there's still a place for that human touch. Talk like I
yes,
talk, text like I text. Um, you know, put my personality into it because ChatGPT can't do that. Um,
mhm,
you know, but I will say that both can be true at the same time. What I've started doing with AI, if I have to construct a pretty long email or maybe a complicated email or one that has to have a lot of boundaries, I will write the entire email and then I will prompt ChatGPT to only fix grammar or to help me pull out something that may be off topic or fluff,
mhm,
And so that's how I use it for work. But I mean, man, it's incredible for work. I'm in insurance, and if I have a coverage question or like, let's say that Progressive is doing something weird on their policies, I can put that in Chat GPT or we have our own AI here at my company and it will strip it down for me. Well, that's incredible, right? Because it takes
mhm.
that human, there's a gray area that ChatGPT says, no, this isn't gray. Here's exactly how it works.
Wow. Yeah, it's my partner, like, he has an AI agency, and so this was 3.5, maybe about 3.5 years ago. He goes, Pete, how are you using AI? And I said, I don't have time for that. I'm loving podcasting and I'm enjoying it. Then I did my first course and it blew me away
Yeah.
because I probably couldn't have come up with that framework in 6 months,
Mm-mm.
but it gave me something I lacked, which I grew up dyslexic and ADHD. So I flunked more tests than I passed. So learning in the academic world was not my thing, but it helped me go from a remedial reader.
Yep.
Now I'm a speed reader because I use chat. I get the summary of books. I plug it into Notebook LM. It gives me a podcast summary, a video summary, and then it'll break it down into slides. So when I go to read the book, I'm comprehending 100 times more than I ever did. But
Mm.
it's still me. But I've kind of leaned on a tool to
Right.
help me really get the most out of books. What do you like when it comes to personal growth? Besides, I mean, I read the Bible every day. That's my
Yeah.
routine. I love that, but I also I'm reading like one book a week, and I never did that. I always bought the books, but I never
Yeah.
got through 'em. What are you doing to just make Tyler better, and how do you go about, maybe books or any
Mm.
information out there?
It's funny you say that. I think that's an area that I can get a lot better. Um, you know, you become what you make time for.
Mhm.
So I become a better dad by being more present with my kids. I become a better
Mhm.
husband by becoming more present with my wife. I become a better business owner by spending more time with my employees, and helping them. Um, so I think I could get better with self development because I like to develop others.
Mhm.
And I'm with you. I have an awesome collection of books, buddy. They look great on my library shelf. I got some back here that you can't see.
Yeah.
I mean, they look awesome, and people come in, they're like, "Oh man, these are great books." I'm like, "Yeah, I've never read it," you know. So I think just I'm inspired now by your take on using AI. I have horrible reading comprehension, so
Yeah.
I enjoy reading, but I mean, I'll get from the top of one paragraph to the bottom of it, and my brain's already thought about what am I going to cook for
Yeah.
dinner tomorrow night,
Yeah.
and
That's
so I have a
amazing.
hard time retaining that information. But here's what I'll tell you is I was working with a mentor at the end of last year. I think we are in a place as a humankind right now, especially in the Western world, where we're taking in way too much content, where we
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
possibly hold space for the amount of podcasts we listen to, for the
Yeah.
amount of news we take in, the amount of TV we take in, the amount of shows, entertainment, whatever it is. Our dopamine is just at an insane level.
Yep.
People listen to these podcasts and music and all that stuff because it does something to you mentally. And that's awesome. But there's also a problem with like we're not connecting with ourselves, with the people
Mhm.
around us because we're too
Mhm.
busy consuming,
Yes.
and so
Yes.
I am trying to focus on that for sure.
That is I'm glad you brought that to the attention of our listeners. I do a thing I call consumption versus creating. And we're born to create.
Mhm.
God created us to create our life. But the average American's watching 4 hours of TV and scrolling 2.5 hours of like
Yeah.
TikTok videos. That's 6.5 hours of consuming other people's life.
Yeah.
When, if we just focus on creating our life, what do you do like when it comes to, I love how you said that consumption versus creating. Did you find yourself anytime in the last couple years leaning more into creating? And what were you doing to do that? Because I think we're happier
Mhm.
creating. And
Yeah.
that's if I looked at the political arena, all this. It's too much consumption of whatever they're consuming on either side. And they're just not being, like you said, not having those meaningful conversations, those
Yep.
relationships where and they're just consuming junk, and then junk comes out. How do you create yourself? What are you doing to create?
It, for me, last year, I had the greatest time in the world creating that podcast.
Mhm.
My podcast is The Other Side of Success. And that was born out of the other side of me. People are like, oh my goodness, you're so successful. Look at this trophy you have behind you. Look at this trophy back here. Like, this is all great. Your life is wonderful. I'm like, well, no, 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 no. This all came at a cost. There's another side of success. So I created this podcast and I loved it. I loved every second of it because it was so challenging. It gave me an opportunity to do something I love, which is to help other people sharpen themselves by telling their story, kind of getting that out there.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's what I did last year, and I loved it. As far as this year, 2026 is concerned, honestly, I'm trying to recreate my team. I have had horrible turnover for 2 years, and
Mhm.
I'm kind of really locking in onto my systems and processes to recruit. So I'm creating the office structure that I want. And while that may sound fun, it's quite challenging. And um, yeah, I think creating can be more than just like a physical, what are you creating? I'm always creating in my brain. I've
Yeah.
got 45 businesses that I want to run up here, but I need to create the opportunity if I
Yeah.
really want to do that.
What's your best tip on focusing?
Oh, buddy, I'm so ADHD. One thing that I got from another insurance agency owner was how he compartmentalizes. And what he means by that is this guy's a massive, massive entrepreneur. He has so many things going at one time. So what he's done is when he's in office A, he is committed 100% to whatever he needs to in that office. Same
Mhm.
thing with Office B, Office C. Same thing with his consulting company. If he's working on his consulting company, that's his sole focus. When he's at home with his wife and his kids, he's a husband and a father. There's no picking up the phone, taking phone calls, worrying about what's
Mhm.
happening at work. And so I'm trying and not doing a great job at that right now of being, Nick Saban will say it, being where your feet are. And
Mm.
all that means is just be present in the moment
Yes.
that you're in right
Yes.
now.
Yes. Yeah, that being present, and as a father of two young kids, I help out at the local high school. So once a month I go in there, and it's a John Maxwell program on
Mhm.
habitudes. And this girl, it was just a discussion with the class, and this girl shared with me, I literally broke my heart. She said that she was talking to her mom, and her mom's on her phone,
Mhm.
and it was like I don't know the exact words, but it was like, is my conversation not important
Mm.
enough
Yep.
that the phone gets the attention? And it was not in those words, but it was, I could see when she was sharing that, because we were asking for people, because this was technology, I think just the devices. Oh my gosh, it just broke my heart that a parent thought that that phone was more important than the conversation with her daughter.
Yeah.
Well, when you talk about coming home and, that time of just kind of getting into the mindset of being the best dad, what have you found that really has lit up your heart when it comes to your kids? Like, it's so powerful to be present, but share with our viewers kind of like what you have discovered with two young kids, and that mindset of being present.
Well, first and foremost, I have a really wonderful wife, and
Mhm.
and the reason I say that is because she is my accountability partner. She is constantly trying to sharpen me and essentially remove anything in my life that's not related to my faith in Jesus. And
Mhm.
um, so I think a practical thing for any husbands, wives to do is when I'm on my phone, if I'm kind of checked out, she'll say something very simple to me that we have agreed she can say that doesn't kind of trigger me. She will
Mm.
say, "Hey, honey, uh, what are you working on?" And that's my trigger. Like, okay, if
Yeah.
this text isn't 100% necessary, I need to put my phone up.
Yeah.
I will tell you too, there is a device out there. Boy, I wish I could get a sponsor from these guys, but there's a little device called a brick. Okay. And this brick is it's a small square. It can go in your pocket. But what happens with this phone is uh, when you leave your home in the mornings, you can actually touch your phone to this brick. And when you leave, it completely shuts down whatever apps you tell it to. I mean, and you cannot get back in those apps until you touch the brick again. Okay.
Mm.
So I know a lot of my insurance buddies have started doing this because, I mean, it'll shock you when you get to work and you don't have Instagram, Twitter, Facebook to constantly refresh. You're like, oh my goodness, what do I do? And it's like, well, what you should do is something productive because you're getting back a ton of time,
Yeah.
and that's one of the coolest devices in the world. I cannot tell you how many times I've bricked my phone leaving the house, and I get to the office, and I'm like, oh man, I can't even use that app, and I have the news apps taken off and everything, and it's really incredible, to be honest.
That is so good. Yeah, I gave up social media. I started social media, I don't know, a dozen, 15 years. So I knew it, but I probably spend maybe 10 minutes, if that, on LinkedIn, and I just look to find guests for the
Mm,
podcast, but
yeah.
I don't scroll and I don't miss it one bit. I don't miss any of that social media. What would you say when it comes to community? What does community mean to you as it relates to your personal life and your business life?
That's a good one. My wife and I are actually in the process right now of restructuring our community. We've had to remove some people that just weren't for us, and that's been tough. And so we're kind of walking this. I don't want to say lonely path right now, but it kind of
Mhm.
is. We have some really great friends, and we're rebuilding community. Um, I cannot stress enough the importance of community. There is. A book coming out by my not good friend, but a guy that I actually had on my podcast, and it's called Every Table an Altar. His name is Ian Simpkins, and he's a pastor at a church in Tennessee. But what he means by that is there is just something that happens when you gather around the table and you have a meal, whether
Yes.
it's your family, but really is what like the outreach in the community you build when you bring friends and family around a table and you share a meal.
Yes.
So I think community definitely in the personal life, I think community in your personal life is far more important than community in your business life.
Mhm.
I know that when the intake questions that you had is like, what do you do? Are you in the community for your business? I got to be 100% honest. I'm not. I don't want any more public. I I don't really care about that anymore. Um,
Mhm.
it's a very time consuming thing, and I'm in a results oriented business. And quite frankly, and this is going to be counterproductive to what a lot of people's thoughts are, but if I'm spending so much time in the community, how am I possibly focusing on my business? Eh, Some people are like, well, you build
Yes.
referrals, and which I agree. I got to be 100% honest. In the insurance space, referrals are something that are built up over a period of time. So, what I use is my personal contacts know exactly what I do. I don't chase these folks. If they need insurance or they need whatever advice, they know who I am and what I do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I operate, man. I'm focused on what's inside the four walls at my house,
Yeah.
and being in the community is great for a lot of people, but it's just not for me.
Yeah. No, I guess it was part. partly because I wasn't driving, so I wasn't in that, going around to these different organizations. So I completely cut it out. And I didn't miss it, but as I look back, I could see that there are people that they wanted to be everywhere, and they would go to everything out there thinking that they had to be everywhere. But really, you don't. You
No.
just, because if you do a great job for your clients,
Yep.
they're going to tell people about you. So if you focus your time on delivering that value and not trying to be everywhere, you're going to be so much better off because you'll be the person they want to handle their stuff. So
Absolutely.
there is
No
that
doubt.
perception. I got to be everywhere. I got to be,
Yeah.
and it's
It's
actually wearing
exhausting.
you out.
It's exhausting.
Exhausting.
Yeah.
Yes. What would you say when it comes to, you mentioned about your wife. So what have you learned in the last couple years that has helped the relationship that you might be able to share with us?
Go to therapy.
Yeah.
Go to therapy. I, I kind of got therapied out for a long time because I was doing so much work on my own personal self. But what we
Mhm.
found is it's really necessary at times, whether it's once a month, every couple months, even once a quarter, is to get in a room with a third party, somebody that's disinterested, that doesn't know your
Mhm.
39 years of life, that can say, okay, here's the challenges that we're facing right now as husband and wife. This is what's happening right now in the most recent time, to just get through that.
Mhm.
This is why attorneys are mediators, right? They're standing between their client and a judge, right?
Mhm.
And it's like the judge's job is to be non-partial. And so, my wife and I are husband and wife, and there's just times that we need some help.
Yeah.
But I also think, one thing that we're really trying to do is schedule time,
Mhm.
because she's a stay-at-home mom. I work. She's active with a group of friends, and she has outside the house activities that she does frequently. And so,
Mhm.
what we try to do and are getting better at is scheduling time. Whether it's once a week, every couple of weeks, where we grab lunch during the middle of the day. We have found that day dates work for us because the kids are at free childcare, and I have a flexible job. So here's the hour and a half that we can spend together, and that's been a game changer, man.
That is so good. I have a buddy, and this was really weird. I rented his Cybertruck. This was a couple months ago, and had the best time with my granddaughters and just family and stuff. And he told me that he'll just Friday night go out on a date with his wife. They'll hit drive, and it'll drive all over the city, and they can have good, meaningful conversations because they're not worried about the traffic, and it drives itself and they
Yeah,
see the city and they talk. And so when I rented it, my 6 9 year old, she was talking to Grok. She was having a blast. We were having a blast because we weren't focused on driving. We
yeah,
were just focused on having the conversations with each other and enjoying each other. There's so much value in that. So
yeah.
when you're not working and you're not being a dad and a husband and not working out, what do you like to do to relax? What do you have, a sport? Do you have an
Yeah.
activity that you like?
Tennis and golf. Those are my 2
Okay,
outlets.
really?
Yeah. I just love physical activity, man. I love to sweat. I love to move my body, and
Yeah.
it's just what makes me feel the best about myself.
Ooh, that is so good. What now, if you were like had to, like, I always we had a speaker at our Rotary Club, and this young man, just impressive. I mean, he works with the city of Ackworth and doing some great things. So I was like, if we could clone this person, it would be great for society. So I asked him, like, was there a person in his life that that ignited his trajectory? Because he's not a typical 26-year-old.
Mhm.
So, has there been a mentor in your life that kind of came alongside of you when you needed it
Yep.
to really help you, get going in the right direction?
Yeah, so two sides of this. One, not really. I'm from the school of hard knocks. I had to really figure things out. I had an unbelievable. I mean, my childhood was great. I had a great mom, great dad, stepdad, that really um, tried to help me form form who I was. But man, I was just, I was focused on playing tennis. I wanted to chase that scholarship, and so I was not the best student. Was not the best. Certainly not the easiest child to raise. Huge heart, loved my family, loved others, but I
Mhm.
wasn't as receptive to their type of parenting. Looking back on it now, I just needed love and a hug. That's what I tell
Mhm.
people all the time. I didn't get enough love, didn't get enough hugs, and that's okay because I still, again, I think my parents did the best that they could with what they had.
Yeah.
However, going back to me talking about every other weekend, my grandmother Lucy, who my daughter's named after, was without question one of the most important people in my entire life. And
Mhm.
she was just old school. She grew up so poor. And so she just really understood the value of living life with intention. And so she was just so intentional to spend time with me. You talk about connection. I always felt so loved when I was with
Mhm.
Gran. Um, and so I would say that when it comes to who's had the most profound impact on me, it's
Mhm.
without question my grandmother.
Wow, that's so good. I want to be respectful of your time. So tell our viewers how they can get a hold of you. Then I have one final question.
Yeah. You get a hold of me on Instagram, Tyler underscore Rutledge. That's my personal account. My podcast is called The Other Side of Success.
Mhm.
And you can find me on Instagram there at The Other Side of Success Pod. Um, very accessible person. I
Mhm.
want people to reach out. If something in this story resonates with folks, is I'm an open book and I love to help. I don't charge to help. I just genuinely, even I'm talking to you, Pete, it's healing for me to just talk and
Mhm.
be honest um, with people. And so if anybody ever needs to reach out, check the links and Pete's in the bio, right? And holler at me. I'm always around.
Ooh, that is so good. Yeah, it's been a real pleasure to have you on. I'm so glad that Brad said, "Man, you got to have my
Yeah.
nephew." Was it nephew or cousin or what?
Nephew. Yeah, I'm his
Nephew,
nephew.
nephew. And I said, "Oh yeah, great." So tell me, like, what would be the one thing that you would want our viewers to take home from our time on this
Mm.
podcast?
The importance of a couple things. Let me get a couple things there.
Okay.
One is say yes. Uh, say yes. Like I said yes to you, and this has just been an incredible time for me. I'll take so many takeaways from this conversation. Look forward to re-listening to it. Um, what I would say is when you feel like you are stuck and life is just throwing stones, there is always a path out. There is always a path out, and it may be hard. You may be walking through the mud, and you may be walking through the mud for the last 10 years. But I can assure you this, if you just keep going, you keep walking through the mud,
Mhm.
there will be breakthrough. There will be breakthrough. I know that if I can do it, anybody can do it, Pete. If you can do it, anybody can do it. And it's going to take some mental fortitude, some resiliency, good people in your life, but you can get through it. I want people to not quit and just keep going.
Tyler, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. I can't wait to send it to Brad and say, "Man, thank you,
Yeah.
Brad, for getting us connected. It was a
Yeah.
real pleasure to have you
Man, I'd
on."
love to come back on, Pete. Anytime you want to
Oh,
chat,
love it.
business, personal life, whatever it may be. I'm always happy. In every episode I record on my own podcast, or anytime I'm a guest on somebody else's podcast, is I hope whoever listens to this can just take one thing from it. you
Yeah.
know, that may make their day or even their life a little bit better. So I'd love to come back on and we can chit chat about whatever you want, my man.
It would be my pleasure. I would love that. Okay. Thank